When an empath's patience runs out, this is what happens to a narcissist. For too long, you, the empath, the giver, the one with the boundless capacity for understanding and forgiveness, have walked a path marked by a unique kind of exhaustion. You've poured your energy, your compassion, and your very essence into a relationship that consistently takes without ever truly replenishing. You've made excuses, you've absorbed their anger, you've tried every possible way to communicate, to nurture, to heal, believing that with enough love, enough patience, enough sacrifice, you could somehow reach them, somehow mend what felt broken within them. You've held on, often for years, enduring a pervasive sense of confusion, profound emotional depletion, and the agonizing realization that your deepest needs were being systematically ignored, dismissed, or actively exploited. But there comes a pivotal moment in every empath's journey with a narcissist, a quiet, often agonizing tipping point. It's the moment when the well of patience, once thought to be bottomless, finally runs dry. It's not a sudden burst of anger or a desire for revenge. It's a profound, soul-deep weariness, a definitive recognition that no amount of giving will ever be enough, and that your own spirit is slowly but surely being extinguished. This is the moment of definitive self-preservation, the decision to finally and irrevocably choose yourself. And when an empath, that perennial source of boundless understanding and unwavering supply, reaches this critical juncture, when their patience truly runs out and they begin to withdraw their life-giving energy, something profound, inevitable, and truly shattering happens to the narcissist. It's not a direct act of vengeance, it's the natural, terrifying consequence of their own pathological inability to sustain genuine connection. It's the moment their carefully constructed world, reliant on external validation, begins to unravel in ways they are ill-equipped to handle. In this crucial and deeply validating discussion, we are going to courageously explore 8 profound psychological realities that unfold for a narcissist when an empath's patience finally runs out. These are the intrinsic pains and unavoidable consequences of their disorder that become starkly apparent and intensely magnified when their primary source of life-sustaining supply is definitively withdrawn. Understanding these dynamics is not about reveling in their suffering, but about gaining crucial clarity for your own healing journey. It helps you see their desperate reactions for what they truly are, validates your courage, and solidifies your resolve, knowing that their suffering stems from their own inherent pathology, a prison they built themselves, and one they can only confront when you finally choose your freedom. When we discuss what happens to a narcissist when an empath's patience runs out, it's vital to frame this from a rigorous psychological perspective. This isn't about the empath doing something to the narcissist to cause them pain, but rather about the empath stopping their enabling, withdrawing their supply, and reclaiming their own energy and boundaries. This act of self-preservation on the empath's part then triggers a series of profound, often agonizing internal consequences for the narcissist, because it directly impacts their ability to regulate their fragile ego and mask their deep-seated pathology. The empath's patience running out typically leads to actions like disengagement, ceasing to respond to their provocations, emotional blackmail, or manipulations, setting firm boundaries, no longer tolerating abuse, disrespect, or incessant demands, going gray rock, becoming emotionally unresponsive and uninteresting to them, implementing no contact, the ultimate severing of all ties. Each of these actions, born from the empath's newfound resolve, systematically cuts off the narcissistic supply that the narcissist desperately needs. And when that supply is cut, the following psychological realities relentlessly begin to surface for the narcissist. The shock of lost supply and profound narcissistic injury. The very first, immediate, and arguably most devastating psychological consequence for a narcissist when an empath's patience finally runs out is the profound shock of lost narcissistic supply and the resultant, excruciating narcissistic injury. For the narcissist, their primary source of validation, attention, admiration, and emotional reactions, their very lifeblood, has been abruptly and definitively cut off. This is not merely a loss, it is a profound assault on their fragile ego, a terrifying blow to their meticulously constructed false self. Psychologically, the narcissist's entire self-worth is externally derived. They lack an authentic, internal sense of value. Therefore, the consistent flow of attention, validation, and emotional reactivity from an empath, who often inadvertently provides immense supply through their reactions, even negative ones, is absolutely essential for their psychological regulation. When this supply is withdrawn, it creates an unbearable void, triggering intense rage, a pervasive sense of profound emptiness, and a terrifying fear of non-existence. The shock stems from the unexpected and profound loss of control, the dawning realization that they can no longer manipulate this particular source. This immediate narcissistic injury manifests as intense rage, often directed outwards in desperate hoovering attempts, smear campaigns, or vindictive actions designed to force the empath back into their orbit. But beneath this fury lies a deeper primal terror of being rendered powerless and utterly irrelevant. This initial shock and injury are only the beginning of a cascade of deeper suffering. 2. The unveiling of core shame and debilitating insecurity. When an empath's patience runs out, and they decisively withdraw their emotional investment and validation, one of the most agonizing consequences for the narcissist is the unveiling of their core, debilitating shame and profound insecurity. The empath, with their inherent capacity to absorb, understand, and forgive, inadvertently serves as a buffer against the narcissist's deep-seated feelings of inadequacy and worthlessness. When that buffer is removed, there's no longer anyone to project that shame onto, no one to deflect their internal torment. Psychologically, the narcissist's grandiosity is a fragile, elaborate defense mechanism against an unbearable internal core of shame, often stemming from early childhood trauma or invalidation. They spend their entire lives desperately running from this feeling, meticulously constructing a false self designed to project an image of perfection and superiority. The empath, by constantly giving, forgiving, and striving to fix the relationship, inadvertently provides constant reassurance that the narcissist isn't truly bad or unworthy. When the empath withdraws, the narcissist is suddenly left alone with the terrifying possibility of confronting their own internal inadequacy. While they will still vehemently project this shame outwards, blaming the empath, smearing them to others, the internal experience of it becomes acutely unbearable. This internal pressure cooker of shame, previously diffused by the empath's presence, begins to boil over, driving desperate and often erratic behaviors. This revelation of their deep-seated insecurity, previously hidden by the empath's boundless empathy, is a profound and unacknowledged suffering for them. 3. Intensified narcissistic rage and uncontrolled meltdowns. The natural consequence of a narcissist's core shame being exposed and their supply being cut off is the intensification of their narcissistic rage, often leading to spectacular and uncontrolled meltdowns. When an empath's patience runs out and they cease to be a receptive target for this fury, the rage has nowhere to go or is directed outwards in increasingly desperate and self-sabotaging ways. Psychologically, narcissistic rage is a primal, explosive reaction to narcissistic injury. Any perceived slight, criticism, or challenge to their grandiose false self. It's an overwhelming, uncontrollable outburst of fury stemming from deep-seated shame and fear. For so long, the empath has absorbed this rage, attempting to soothe it, rationalize it, or simply endure it, inadvertently providing a target for the narcissist to offload their internal turmoil. When the empath finally withdraws, the narcissist loses this crucial emotional dumping ground. The rage, still boiling within, either turns inwards, manifesting as severe anxiety, depression, or even self-destructive behaviors, or it erupts outwards onto less suitable targets, new partners, colleagues, or even strangers, further damaging their reputation and relationships. These meltdowns are a form of profound suffering for the narcissist because they signify a complete loss of control, a terrifying experience for someone who desperately needs to be in charge. This intensified, unmanageable fury, previously diffused by the empath's presence, becomes a destructive force that slowly, but surely corrodes their own life and reinforces their isolation. 4. Desperate and increasingly erratic hoovering attempts. When an empath's patience finally runs out, and they effectively implement no contact or strong boundaries, one of the most characteristic and desperate things that happens to the narcissist is a rapid escalation into increasingly erratic, manipulative, and often pathetic hovering attempts. This is a direct manifestation of their panic at losing a primary valuable source of supply and their terror of abandonment. Psychologically, hovering is a desperate attempt to suck the victim back into the narcissistic orbit. Like a vacuum cleaner, it's driven by the narcissist's inability to self-regulate without external validation. They may try every tactic imaginable: love bombing, victim playing, threats, apologies, often insincere, flying monkeys, or even manufactured crises. The suffering for the narcissist here is the agonizing desperation and fear of being truly alone. They are forced to actively pursue, to beg, to manipulate in ways that expose their true neediness, which is deeply humiliating for their grandiose false self. Each failed hovering attempt deepens their narcissistic injury and intensifies their rage and shame. While this is incredibly distressing for the victim, for the narcissist, it's a terrifying confirmation of their impending loss of control and their fundamental powerlessness. They are forced into a state of relentless pursuit, a desperate scramble to regain what they believe is rightfully theirs, a profound and draining experience that speaks to their pathological dependency. 5. Exacerbated internal emptiness and profound boredom. As the empath's patience runs out and their life-giving energy is withdrawn, another profound and inescapable suffering that intensifies for the narcissist is the exacerbated internal emptiness and a pervasive, profound boredom. The empath, with their rich inner world, vibrant emotions, and diverse interests, often served as an exciting and stimulating source of novelty and distraction for the narcissist. When that stimulation is gone, the narcissist is left alone with their own barren internal landscape. Psychologically, the narcissist lacks a stable, authentic self, with genuine interests or a robust inner life. Their existence is often driven by a desperate need for external stimulation to avoid the gnawing void within. The empath's vibrant energy, their emotional reactions, and their capacity for empathy provided endless material for the narcissist to manipulate, exploit, and use as a mirror for their own grandiosity. When the empath disengages, the narcissist is suddenly deprived of this dynamic source of distraction and stimulation. The pre-existing internal emptiness, which they work so hard to avoid, becomes unbearably prominent. They are left with a profound sense of ennui, a chronic state of meaninglessness that no amount of external achievement or new, superficial supply can truly fill. This feeling of being utterly bored, constantly restless, and perpetually unfulfilled is a deep existential suffering that the empath's departure forces them to confront without the usual coping mechanism. 6. Forced confrontation with their profound isolation. When an empath's patience finally runs out and they cease to be a source of genuine, albeit one-sided connection, the narcissist is increasingly forced to confront the stark, terrifying reality of their profound isolation. Despite often being surrounded by flying monkeys or new sources of supply, the narcissist is fundamentally alone due to their inability to form genuine reciprocal emotional bonds. Psychologically, narcissists are incapable of true intimacy, mutual vulnerability, or empathetic connection. They view relationships as transactional, seeing others as objects or extensions of themselves. They cannot trust, because they project their own deceitfulness onto everyone else. They cannot be truly known, because they hide behind a meticulously crafted false self. While the empath was present, the narcissist could maintain the illusion of a deep connection, exploiting the empath's genuine desire for intimacy. When the empath leaves, they are forced to cycle through new relationships, each one inevitably ending in the same superficiality and ultimate isolation. The suffering here is the dawning, albeit often unacknowledged, realization that they are fundamentally disconnected. They cannot form bonds that truly nourish them, and they are left with a chilling sense of profound loneliness that cannot be cured by fleeting attention or superficial achievements. Your departure intensifies this existential isolation, leaving them alone with the consequences of their relational pathology. 7. Loss of control and the crumbling of their illusion of power. For a narcissist, the greatest terror is losing control. When an empath's patience runs out and they reclaim their autonomy through strong boundaries or no contact, a profound consequence for the narcissist is the shattering loss of control and the crumbling of their meticulously crafted illusion of absolute power. This is deeply terrifying for them. Psychologically, narcissists are pathological control freaks. They need to control their environment, their narrative, and especially the people around them, to regulate their internal state and maintain their grandiose false self. The empath, with their innate desire to fix, to understand and to accommodate, inadvertently allows the narcissist immense control. When the empath finally withdraws their emotional and physical presence, they explicitly refuse to be controlled any longer. This sends the narcissist into a tailspin of panic and rage, as their illusion of omnipotence shatters. The suffering here is the unbearable feeling of powerlessness, the dawning realization that they cannot force the empath back, cannot control their narrative, and cannot prevent the loss of supply. This loss of control creates intense narcissistic injury, leading to desperate, often futile, attempts to regain it. This is a terrifying experience for them, as it directly challenges the core tenet of their false self, that they are all-powerful and infallible. Your autonomy becomes their worst nightmare, forcing them to grapple with a reality where they are not ultimately in charge. 8. The inescapable acceleration of their self-sabotaging cycle. Finally, when an empath's patience runs out, one of the most devastating long-term consequences for the narcissist is the inescapable acceleration and intensified visibility of their self-sabotaging cycle of idealization, devaluation, discard. Your departure doesn't just mean losing you, it means they lose a key component that allowed them to manage or even hide this cycle. Psychologically, narcissists are condemned to repeat this destructive pattern in every significant relationship they enter. They idealize a new source, devalue them when they inevitably fail to provide perfect, constant supply, and then discard them to seek another fix. While you were present, enduring the cycle, you perhaps slowed its pace, or provided enough supply to prevent them from needing to constantly seek new sources. Your departure forces them into a rapid, often desperate search for new supply. The suffering here is that they are perpetually destroying any chance at genuine happiness or sustained connection. Each new relationship will follow the same pattern, leading to the same emptiness and the same trail of broken bonds. As they age, and their manipulative tactics become more transparent or their attractiveness wanes, it becomes increasingly difficult to find and retain new sources of supply. This leaves them increasingly isolated, with their own self-sabotaging patterns becoming starkly apparent, even to themselves, though rarely consciously acknowledged. This is a brutal, self-imposed karma, where their own pathology ensures a life of perpetual relational instability and ultimate desolation, a suffering that your courageous departure ultimately helps to accelerate and expose. The journey of an empath whose patience has finally run out is one of immense courage and profound self-liberation. When you choose to reclaim your energy, to set firm boundaries, and to walk away from the draining dynamics of a narcissistic relationship, you trigger a series of profound and unavoidable consequences for the narcissist. It's not about revenge, but about the natural psychological fallout of their disorder when deprived of its essential fuel. The shock of lost supply, the agonizing unveiling of their core shame, the intensification of their narcissistic rage, their desperate hoovering, the exacerbation of their internal emptiness, the stark confrontation with their profound isolation, the devastating loss of control, and the inescapable acceleration of their self-sabotaging cycle. These are the intrinsic sufferings that plague a narcissist, amplified and exposed by your brave decision to prioritize your own well-being. Understanding these dynamics is vital for your healing. It demystifies their desperate maneuvers, validates your experiences of being used and depleted, and strengthens your resolve to maintain no contact or firm boundaries. You realize that their suffering stems from their own inherent pathology, a prison they built themselves, and one that your freedom forces them to confront. Your unwavering courage in choosing yourself is the most profound statement you can make, a testament to your resilience, and the ultimate path to your peace and authentic self. Thank you for joining us on this vital journey of insight and empowerment. If this video has resonated deeply with you, or if you believe it could bring crucial understanding and a clear path forward to someone you know, please share it widely. and with intention. Let's continue to illuminate the path toward healing and authentic connection for everyone. See you in the next video.